When was the last time you were able to focus on a single task for more than 5 minutes without reaching for your phone? Has your mind become a prisoner to the endless scroll, the constant notifications, the ceaseless barrage of information competing for your attention? In today's hyper-connected world, we're facing an epidemic that few recognize but nearly everyone experiences: mental slavery. Look around you. Everywhere, people are glued to screens, their attention fractured into countless pieces, jumping from one fleeting thought to another without ever truly engaging with any of them. Their eyes hold a certain fog, a dullness that betrays the quiet chaos happening within. And perhaps you've felt it too. But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. Has this ever happened to you? You sit down to work on something important, only to find your mind wandering, craving distraction, almost trembling for stimulation. You might blame yourself for being lazy or unmotivated, but what if I told you that's not the case at all? The truth is far more insidious. Your mind isn't weak, it's overwhelmed. What feels like exhaustion is actually information overload. What feels like lack of motivation is actually lack of focus. In the confusion of constant stimulation, your potential, your power, quietly bleeds away as your mind struggles to filter through the noise. Stay with me until the end, because understanding this distinction might be the most crucial realization you have all year. Centuries ago, the great political philosopher Machiavelli observed something profound about human nature and power. He recognized that the most dangerous person isn't the strongest, the richest, or even the most intelligent in the conventional sense. The most dangerous, the most powerful, is the one who thinks with crystal clarity. "The wise man does at once what the fool does finally," he wrote. The difference between wisdom and foolishness isn't knowledge, it's clarity, the ability to cut through the noise and see what truly matters. What you're about to discover might surprise you. This mental clarity that Machiavelli spoke of isn't some innate gift bestowed upon a lucky few. It's a skill, a discipline, a practice that can be developed. And in our modern world of endless distractions and information overload, this skill has become more valuable than ever before. Think of your mind as a blade. A dull blade bends and breaks when facing resistance, but a sharp one cuts through obstacles with precision and grace. Every notification you check, every mindless scroll, every moment spent reacting rather than thinking, all of these dull your mental blade. But there are ways to sharpen it again, to hone it to such a fine edge that no confusion, no manipulation, no mental fog can stand against it. If you're committed to sharpening your mind in this distracted world, hit subscribe now. I share powerful mental clarity techniques that most people will never discover. And every day you face a choice. Will you continue to let external forces dull your blade, or will you begin the transformative journey of sharpening it? This hidden truth is what separates those who merely exist from those who truly thrive in our chaotic world. The blade of your mind isn't just a tool, it's the primary weapon in a battle most people don't even realize they're fighting, because the true game of power, the real arena of influence, begins not in boardrooms or on social media, but inside your own thoughts. When you master your mind, something remarkable happens. The noise that once overwhelmed you becomes transparent. You start to see through the illusions that capture others' attention. The manipulations that work on distracted minds lose their power over you. Like a chess player who can anticipate moves before they happen, your clarity allows you to predict outcomes others can't even imagine. This mental sovereignty represents the most profound transformation possible, from being controlled to becoming the controller. But here's where most people misunderstand the path forward. They believe the solution lies in motivation, in finding some magical spark of inspiration that will suddenly make focus easier. They're looking for the wrong fuel. The revelation that changed my own journey came when I realized that focus isn't about motivation at all. It's about control in its purest form. Motivation is fleeting, a temporary emotional state. Control, however, is a decision, a stance, a position of power you take regardless of how you feel in the moment. Look closely at the mindset of truly impactful individuals. While the average person's attention drifts from one impulse to another, reacting to whatever crosses their path, the disciplined mind moves with intention. There's a weight to their presence, a gravity to their decisions that stems from this fundamental difference. They don't wait to feel focused. They decide to be focused. Every second you maintain that control is a declaration of dominance over confusion. It's you reclaiming territory that was once overrun by distraction. The ordinary mind serves whatever grabs its attention. The extraordinary mind commands attention where it chooses to give it. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because understanding the mechanics of focus reveals something even more fundamental about how power operates in the modern world. Machiavelli, observing the courts and kingdoms of Renaissance Italy, noted that he who wishes to be obeyed must know how to command. The same principle governs your thought patterns. A weak mind serves distraction like a servant obeys a demanding master. But a powerful mind commands attention like a ruler governs a kingdom, deliberately, strategically, with complete authority. This isn't just about productivity, it's about reclaiming your sovereignty in a world designed to fragment your awareness. If you've recognized this pattern in your own life, write in the comments, "My mind is my weapon," because acknowledging this truth is the first step toward wielding it effectively. The relationship between focus and mental strength is one of the most profound revelations in the journey toward mental mastery. When you sharpen your focus, you're not just improving a skill, you're fundamentally strengthening your mind's architecture. The decision to direct your attention deliberately creates neural pathways that become highways of clarity through the fog of distraction. What's particularly fascinating about this mindset shift is how it mirrors the structures of power Machiavelli observed centuries ago. In his world of political intrigue, he recognized that true authority didn't come from shouting the loudest, but from commanding with quiet certainty. Your thoughts operate under the same hidden truth. A weak mind serves every distraction that appears, while a powerful one commands attention like a ruler governs a kingdom, with sovereignty, purpose, and vision. But here's the insidious reality most people never confront. Distraction doesn't erode your potential in dramatic, noticeable ways. There's no alarm that sounds when your mental capacity diminishes. Instead, it happens through 1,000 tiny surrenders, a quick check of notifications here, a brief scroll there. Each seemingly harmless moment creates a cumulative impact that gradually dissolves your ability to think deeply. The transformation happens so subtly that most never realize what they've lost until they find themselves unable to read a book for more than 5 minutes or complete a thought without reaching for their phone. They've confused being busy with being effective, rushing through life, collecting fragments of ideas without ever completing a single one. This creates a graveyard of potential, thoughts that could have changed everything but never had the chance to fully form. The most counterintuitive revelation in this journey is where real mental strength comes from. In a culture that celebrates constant motion, the ultimate power move is stillness. True strength emerges not from frenetic activity, but from the ability to direct your mental energy toward a single purpose while everyone around you chases noise. This isn't just philosophical, it's practical. Look behind the scenes of any truly impactful work, and you'll find someone who mastered the art of mental stillness. Focus isn't about doing more, It's about doing what matters and ruthlessly cutting everything else without hesitation or apology. This requires a courage that few develop, the courage to say no to 1,000 good things so you can say yes to the one great thing that deserves your complete attention. When you develop this level of mental clarity, you begin to notice how rare it truly is. In meetings, conversations, and public spaces, you can literally see the difference between those trapped in reactive patterns and those who move with purpose. One appears busy, but accomplishes little of significance. The other seems almost unnaturally calm, yet produces work of remarkable depth and quality. The ability to remain still amid chaos isn't weakness. It's the ultimate expression of control. It's the discipline to separate signal from noise, essence from distraction, what matters from what merely demands attention. This is what separates those who merely survive in our information-saturated environment from those who thrive and lead within it. If you felt the subtle drain of constant distraction in your own life, drop this in the comments. Calm is control. Now let me share something that might fundamentally shift your perspective on personal power. When you observe those rare individuals who have truly mastered focus, you'll notice something almost unsettling about their presence. They operate from a place of silence rather than noise. While others frantically voice opinions or chase emotional reactions, these individuals remain composed, absorbing information, processing deeply, and responding only when necessary. Their calmness creates a peculiar effect in social and professional settings. It makes others slightly uncomfortable. Why? Because controlled. Stillness reveals a level of inner discipline that stands in stark contrast to a world governed by impulse and reaction. Their silence isn't emptiness, it's concentration distilled to its purest form. This quality creates a gravitational pull that commands respect without demanding it. Machiavelli captured this phenomenon perfectly when he wrote, "Men judge generally more by the eye than by the hand." Behind this cryptic observation lies a profound truth about human perception. People assess power not primarily by what you say or do, but by how you appear while doing it. Someone who moves through life with quiet certainty doesn't need to prove their authority or intelligence. It's already visible in how they maintain focus amid chaos. This explains why the most impressive leaders and thinkers often say less than everyone around them. Their restraint isn't weakness or hesitation. It's the visible manifestation of mental discipline. While others rush to fill every moment of silence, these individuals understand that power lies in the spaces between words, in the pause before response, in the moment of reflection that precedes action. Perhaps the most counterintuitive revelation in this journey of mental transformation is that focus is built through subtraction, not addition. Our instinct when wanting to improve is always to add more information, more techniques, more tools. But true focus grows when unnecessary stimulation is removed. It's a process of deliberate reduction, of clearing mental space rather than filling it. Think of it as sculpting. Michelangelo didn't create David by adding marble. He revealed the figure by carefully removing everything that wasn't David. Your mind works the same way. The fewer distractions you allow in, the sharper it becomes. Each notification silenced, each unnecessary meeting declined, each distraction eliminated carves away what's obscuring your mental clarity. This subtraction process creates an uncomfortable reality. At first, when you remove the constant noise that most people use to avoid deeper thoughts, you suddenly confront what was hidden beneath. Unresolved questions, challenging emotions, creative tensions. This is precisely why most people rush back to distraction. Silence exposes everything they've been avoiding. But it's exactly in that exposure that real growth begins. The journey toward mental clarity isn't about accumulating more, but about stripping away what doesn't serve your purpose. It's about creating space for depth rather than breadth, for completion rather than fragmentation, for quality rather than quantity. Every moment of focus becomes more valuable when it isn't diluted by what's unnecessary. If you've started to recognize how much mental clutter has been holding you back, write in the comments, "Less is clarity." This process of subtraction leads to something remarkable, a mind that becomes virtually unshakable. Consider the difference between most people's mental state and one that's been deliberately trained through focus. Most minds function like open windows in a storm. Everything enters without filter or resistance. Opinions, news, social media trends, gossip, notifications, and endless noise create a constant state of mental turbulence. But a mind that learns to close its doors to nonsense develops a stability that seems almost superhuman in today's environment. This isn't about ignorance, it's about selectivity. When you choose what deserves your attention, rather than responding to whatever screams loudest, you create a mental architecture that can withstand almost any external pressure without being moved. The transformation extends far beyond just feeling better. It fundamentally alters how you perceive and process reality. When concentration deepens, decisions that once seemed complex suddenly appear straightforward. The noise that clouded judgment falls away, revealing the essential path forward. This explains why those with exceptional focus often seem to make faster, cleaner decisions even in high-pressure situations. They're operating with mental clarity that cuts through confusion. Join our community of clear thinkers by clicking subscribe. Every video is designed to strengthen your mental sovereignty in a world trying to capture your attention. In professional and social environments, this quality creates a fascinating dynamic. In a world practically addicted to reaction, calm concentration radiates an unmistakable aura of authority. Think about the last meeting you attended. Who commanded respect? Usually not the person speaking the most or with the loudest voice, but the individual who remained composed, listened deeply, and spoke with quiet certainty. Machiavelli understood this dynamic centuries before modern psychology. He observed that clarity doesn't just inform command, it creates it. A mind that knows exactly what it wants doesn't waste energy competing for attention or validation. Instead, it naturally directs the environment around it through the magnetic pull of focused intention. This isn't manipulation, it's influence in its purest form. The hidden revelation here is that in our current age of unprecedented distraction, focus has become the highest form of power available to the individual. When everyone around you is fragmented, scattered, and reactive, your focused awareness becomes a competitive advantage in every domain of life. Career, relationships, creativity, even personal well-being. This focused awareness shapes your environment in subtle but profound ways. It influences others, not through force, but through the quiet example of concentrated attention. It builds silent respect among those perceptive enough to recognize genuine mental strength. A clear mind isn't loud or demanding, but its presence is always felt, like gravity quietly influencing everything in its field without making a sound. What's particularly fascinating about this journey toward mental clarity is how it reveals hidden patterns in human behavior that would otherwise remain invisible. When you're no longer swept up in the same currents of distraction that capture most people's attention, you begin to see the underlying architecture of influence. How attention is directed, how decisions are shaped, and how power actually flows beneath the surface of everyday interactions. If you've noticed how your own capacity for focus gives you an edge in situations where others seem scattered, drop this phrase in the comments. Focus is power. Now let me reveal what might be the most significant paradigm shift needed to develop a razor-sharp mind in our information-saturated age. We've been conditioned to believe that mental growth happens through accumulation, that to become smarter, more focused, or more successful, we must constantly add more knowledge, consume more content, gather more data. It's the foundation of modern education, professional development, and even personal growth. But this instinct for addition is precisely what's dulling our mental edge. The breakthrough comes when you realize the mind sharpens through elimination, not accumulation. The modern mind worships addition like a religion, learning more, reading more, collecting more information, pursuing more credentials, joining more conversations. Yet true mental clarity emerges not from what is gained, but from what is removed. This revelation transforms your entire approach to personal development. Instead of asking, "What more can I learn?" the sharper question becomes, "What can I eliminate to see more clearly?" Wisdom doesn't accumulate like sediment. It emerges like a sculpture when everything unnecessary has been carved away. What makes this journey particularly challenging is confronting an uncomfortable truth. Most of our mental confusion is self-inflicted. Your mind fills with noise disguised as knowledge, opinions that matter little, trends that will be forgotten next month, gossip that changes. Nothing, notifications that interrupt profound thought, and the emotional residue of other people's chaos. Behind the scenes of every distracted mind is this pattern of willing surrender. Every notification you don't silence, every pointless debate you engage in, every hour spent consuming content that doesn't serve your purpose becomes a transaction. You're trading your mental power for momentary stimulation. These aren't harmless habits. They're small surrenders of sovereignty that accumulate into a profound loss of clarity and capability. The path toward mental sharpness requires embracing what I call subtractive thinking, a discipline that feels counterintuitive in our additive culture. Subtractive thinking demands that you cut before you create, that you clear before you build. This isn't passive elimination, it's a ruthlessly precise process of removing false ideas, detaching from meaningless influences, and stripping away the unnecessary until only what truly matters remains. Think of it as mental minimalism. Not the aesthetic trend of empty rooms and monochromatic wardrobes, but a fundamental approach to thought itself. Every idea, commitment, and belief in your mind should earn its place through genuine value, not just habitual presence. The mental transformation this creates is remarkable. Thoughts become clearer, decisions become faster, and creative insights that were previously drowned out by noise suddenly emerge with surprising force. What's fascinating about this approach is how it reveals connections between seemingly unrelated elements of your life. You begin to notice how physical clutter in your environment reinforces mental clutter in your mind, how toxic relationships drain the same cognitive resources needed for deep focus, how saying yes to too many commitments fragments your attention in ways that extend far beyond your calendar. The decision to embrace subtractive thinking doesn't just change how you process information, it fundamentally alters your relationship with the world. You develop an instinctive resistance to manipulation because you recognize attempts to capture your attention for what they are, invasions of your mental territory. If you've started to notice how much mental space is occupied by things that don't truly matter to you, write in the comments, "Subtract to sharpen." This realization about subtractive thinking naturally leads us to one of the most misunderstood aspects of mental clarity, the role of solitude. In our hyper-connected culture, solitude has been reframed as something to be avoided, often confused with loneliness or social rejection. But powerful thinkers throughout history have recognized solitude not as an absence of connection, but as a deliberate practice of mental cleaning. When you observe the daily routines of history's greatest minds, from Einstein to Maya Angelou, you'll find they all carved out periods of undisturbed solitude, not because they feared people, but because they understood that in stillness, mental illusions fade away. What remains after this clearing process is raw thought, unfiltered, strong, and direct. It's the difference between muddy water and crystal clarity. Given enough stillness, the sediment settles, and you can finally see to the bottom. This mental cleaning isn't a luxury. It's a necessity for anyone seeking extraordinary clarity. The transformation that happens in these moments of solitude can't be replicated in any other environment. The constant input from others, however well-intentioned, creates a form of thought pollution that obscures your own deepest insights. In solitude, you discover not just what you think, but why you think it. What makes this approach particularly challenging is that true subtractive thinking isn't a passive process of simply sitting quietly. It's an active, sometimes ruthless journey of questioning everything that occupies your mental space. It cuts through sentiment, ego, and attachment. It asks uncomfortable questions. Does this belief serve me or limit me? Is this commitment aligned with my purpose or just a residue of old decisions? Is this relationship nourishing my growth or depleting my energy? Most people avoid this level of mental housekeeping precisely because it means confronting their own clutter, beliefs they've outgrown, commitments they've made for the wrong reasons, relationships they maintain out of habit rather than genuine connection. The discomfort of this confrontation drives them back to the safety of distraction, the comforting noise that keeps deeper questions at bay. The resistance to subtractive thinking runs deeper than personal habits. It's embedded in our cultural DNA. Society glorifies addition because it feels productive, visible, measurable. Getting more, doing more, knowing more. These create the illusion of progress. We celebrate the visible markers of addition, degrees, possessions, followers, accomplishments, while overlooking the invisible power of subtraction. Yet behind the scenes of every breakthrough, scientific, artistic, personal, you'll find this same pattern of ruthless elimination. Real progress happens not when unnecessary elements are added, but when they're stripped away. The theory becomes elegant, the painting captures essence rather than detail, the business model focuses on core value rather than features. This mental decluttering process creates a remarkable shift in perception. Subtractive thinking is like clearing fog from a mirror. Suddenly everything becomes visible with startling clarity. Decisions that once seemed complex appear straightforward. Priorities that were buried under obligations resurface. Your authentic voice, often drowned out by the chorus of others' opinions, becomes clear and distinct. If you've experienced that moment of crystal clarity after removing rather than adding something to your life, drop this in the comments. Clarity through removal. This journey of mental refinement creates an interesting social dynamic. Those who master subtractive thinking often appear somewhat mysterious to others. They speak less, but say more. They move with purpose rather than reactivity. They remain calm when everyone else is agitated. And this restraint is frequently misinterpreted. People mistake it for coldness, aloofness, or even arrogance, not recognizing that what they're actually witnessing is clarity distilled to its essence. In social gatherings, professional settings, even intimate relationships, this quality creates a distinctive presence. The person who doesn't feel compelled to fill every silence, who listens more than speaks, who observes before acting, radiates a different energy than those constantly performing their thoughts and reactions. Machiavelli understood this restraint not as social awkwardness, but as a deliberate form of control, a strategic position rather than a personality limitation. This restraint reveals an important revelation about mental mastery. The controlled mind doesn't broadcast its power through volume or frequency, but through precision and timing. When someone who normally speaks little finally offers a perspective, people instinctively lean in. Their words carry weight precisely because they aren't constantly diluting their impact through endless chatter. The mental journey I'm describing isn't just about personal clarity. It fundamentally changes how you navigate chaos in the external world. Machiavelli captured this principle perfectly when he wrote, "There is no avoiding war. It can only be postponed to the advantage of others." Translated to mental clarity, this wisdom reveals that mental chaos can't be avoided by simply running from it or ignoring it. That merely postpones the inevitable confrontation, usually to your disadvantage. Instead, chaos must be managed by systematically removing what fuels it. Think of mental noise like a fire. It can't burn without oxygen and fuel. When you eliminate the sources of mental friction, unnecessary commitments, toxic relationships, information overload, scattered priorities, you starve chaos of what it needs to grow. This isn't passive avoidance, it's active management through strategic elimination. The transformation this creates goes beyond just feeling better. It fundamentally alters your relationship with external turbulence. When the mind is stripped of its internal clutter, external chaos loses much of its influence over you. Events that would once have triggered anxiety, confusion, or reactivity now pass through your awareness without capturing it. You observe rather than absorb the turmoil around you. This is where subtractive thinking turns raw intelligence into precision, a focused beam rather than scattered light. The fewer distractions permitted into your mental space, the sharper your perception becomes. Those who practice this discipline move through life with a quiet efficiency that seems almost supernatural in our frantic world. They remain largely unaffected by noise, clear about purpose, and resistant to manipulation through distraction. What's particularly fascinating about this mental journey is how it reveals the hidden architecture behind human behavior. When your own mind is quiet, you begin to see patterns in others' actions that would otherwise remain invisible. You notice how reactive behavior follows predictable cycles, how emotional triggers create predictable responses, how most conflicts arise from the same fundamental misunderstandings. If you've noticed how maintaining mental clarity allows you to stay centered while others are thrown off balance by chaos, share in the comments. Control creates power. Let me share a profound insight that changed my own journey toward mental clarity, one that reveals the hidden relationship between your internal world and external influence. Every form of power you'll ever exercise in the external world begins with internal control. This isn't just philosophical. It's the practical foundation of personal transformation. Someone who cannot command their own mind inevitably becomes a puppet, manipulated by emotions, impulses, and circumstances rather than directing their own course. Most people operate under a dangerous illusion that they can somehow maintain balance while dividing their attention between a dozen different priorities. This fragmentation creates a mind that's easily influenced because it lacks the concentrated force needed to maintain its own direction. Behind every person who seems constantly blown off course by life's challenges is this same pattern: internal fragmentation leading to external vulnerability. Machiavelli captured this principle perfectly when he observed, "The first method for estimating the intelligence of a ruler is to look at the men he has around him." While he was referring to political advisors, this same insight applies to your mental landscape. The thoughts you allow to surround your consciousness, the beliefs, ideas, and perspectives you permit regular access to your mind, ultimately determine your mental strength. Think of your thoughts as your inner counsel. Some thoughts serve as wise advisors, providing clarity and direction. Others act as saboteurs, undermining your confidence and clouding your judgment. The quality of this inner counsel, which thoughts you elevate and which you dismiss, shapes the decisions that ultimately determine your path. This isn't mystical. It's a practical reality of how cognitive patterns form and strengthen through repetition and attention. What makes this especially relevant in our current environment is that the modern mind faces unprecedented challenges to its authority. It's constantly pulled apart by external triggers specifically designed to capture and redirect attention. Fear manipulates decisions by activating the amygdala, bypassing rational thought. Anger destroys judgment by flooding the system with chemicals that prioritize reaction over reflection. Anxiety steals presence by projecting consciousness into imagined futures rather than current reality. The most insidious aspect of this mental fragmentation is that many mistake reaction for awareness. They believe that because they're constantly responding to stimuli, notifications, news, social media, opinions, they're somehow more connected or informed. In reality, this reactivity represents the opposite of true awareness. It's a surrender of conscious attention to whatever demands it most loudly. Mental control forms the foundation of personal authority in every domain of life. In professional settings, the person who maintains composure while others react emotionally naturally assumes leadership, regardless of formal titles. In creative pursuits, the mind that can sustain focus through difficulties produces work of depth rather than mere novelty. In relationships, emotional self-governance creates the stability that allows genuine connection rather than codependence. The journey toward this level of mental mastery isn't about rigid control or suppression of natural human experience. Rather, it's about developing the capacity to observe your own mental patterns with enough distance to choose your response, rather than being driven by automatic reactions. This discipline creates a space between stimulus and response, a space where freedom and power reside. If you've noticed how your ability to influence external circumstances directly correlates with your internal mental state, share in the comments. Inner command, outer power. Now let me reveal what might be the most transformative insight in this entire journey toward mental clarity, a seemingly simple principle that contains remarkable power. The true source of personal power lies not in rapid reaction, but in the deliberate pause between stimulus and response. This momentary space, this brief interval between what happens to you and how you choose to react, contains the seed of all personal freedom and influence. Most people live their entire lives without discovering this hidden territory. They experience a trigger, a comment, a setback, a challenge, and their reaction follows so immediately that it appears automatic, as if no choice was involved. But those who develop mental sharpness recognize that in this microscopic pause lies an entire universe of possibility. In that pause, clarity speaks louder than impulse. Options invisible to the reactive mind suddenly appear. The pattern recognition capacity of your brain activates, connecting current circumstances to past experiences and future implications. This isn't about suppressing natural responses. It's about expanding the field of choices available before you commit to action. The mind that obeys emotion without this pause becomes a servant to its own reactions. But the mind that commands emotion, that observes it, understands it, but isn't controlled by it, becomes a ruler of its own domain. This mastery creates ripple effects throughout every decision, relationship, and challenge you encounter. Machiavelli captured this adaptive capacity perfectly when he wrote, "Whosoever desires constant success must change his conduct with the times." The controlled mind embodies this principle not through erratic shifts, but through deliberate adaptation. It remains anchored to core values while adjusting tactical approaches based on changing circumstances. When confronted with pressure, this disciplined mind adjusts rather than panics. When challenged, it recalculates rather than collapses. Every emotion, even difficult ones like anger, fear, or doubt, transforms from potential disorder into useful data. Feelings become information rather than commands, signals rather than drivers, expanding awareness rather than narrowing it. This mental discipline creates a fundamental reversal in how decisions emerge. Most people let feelings drive actions and then later regret what was done in the heat of emotion. They speak in anger, retreat in fear, commit in excitement, and then must live with consequences they never intended to create. Those who practice mental control invert this sequence. They act after thought, never before. Their remarkable calmness under tension isn't some inborn trait or natural temperament. It's a capacity trained through countless moments of restraint, small victories of patience that gradually construct an unshakable foundation of self-command. Like a muscle, strengthened through deliberate resistance, the mind grows more powerful, with each impulse observed rather than immediately obeyed. What's particularly fascinating about this journey is the revelation that true mental strength doesn't come from rigidity, but from precision. It's not about never feeling emotion, it's about feeling it fully while maintaining the capacity to choose your response. This creates a mind that's simultaneously engaged and detached, present with experience yet not consumed by it. This capacity transforms not just individual decisions, but your entire relationship with reality. Events that once seemed overwhelming become navigable. Provocations that would have triggered automatic reactions become opportunities for creative response. The hidden architecture of influence, invisible to those caught in reactive patterns, becomes increasingly apparent. If you've experienced that moment of clarity that comes from pausing before reacting, share in the comments. The pause is power. This journey toward mental clarity reveals another critical insight that most people miss: the gap between intention and implementation. Many believe that simply desiring mental control is enough to achieve it, but desire alone creates only temporary shifts in behavior. True mastery of the mind requires something far more substantial. It demands structure. This structure is what transforms occasional moments of clarity into a consistent mental state. Mastering the mind means developing systems of control across three essential domains: attention, emotion, and timing. Each requires its own discipline and practice. Attention must be trained through deliberate focus exercises, emotion through self-observation techniques, and timing through practiced restraint. Without these structural supports, even the strongest intention eventually collapses under pressure. The mind cannot be governed through willpower alone. That's like trying to hold back a flood with your bare hands. Instead, it requires the architecture of habits. Small, consistent actions that gradually reshape how you process information, respond to triggers, and allocate mental energy. These habits form the invisible infrastructure that makes self-control automatic rather than effortful, creating a mind that naturally maintains clarity rather than constantly fighting for it. What's particularly fascinating about this developmental journey is how control creates expanded perception. When thoughts no longer run wild, consuming all available mental bandwidth, awareness naturally expands into territories previously hidden from view. It's similar to what happens when background noise suddenly stops. You begin to hear subtle sounds that were always present but masked by louder distractions. As this perceptual clarity develops, patterns in human behavior become increasingly apparent. You notice how certain words trigger predictable responses, how specific situations create recurring emotional patterns, how manipulation operates through predictable tactics. Social dynamics that once seemed mysterious become transparent. Emotional traps that would have once captured your attention lose their effect entirely. This enhanced perception creates a fascinating shift in influence. Those who control their inner world naturally begin influencing their outer environment, often without conscious effort. Their clarity acts as a gravitational force, subtly altering the field around them. Others find themselves unconsciously adjusting their behavior, moderating their reactions, and orienting toward the centered presence of a controlled mind. Machiavelli understood something profound about this dynamic centuries before modern psychology. He recognized that visible emotion invites exploitation, while composure creates mystery. When someone displays every thought and feeling transparently, they become predictable, and predictability surrenders power. But when someone maintains composed control, revealing only what they choose to reveal, they become a mystery, and mystery commands attention. This principle operates throughout human interaction. People instinctively fear what they cannot read, and a controlled mind is essentially unreadable. Not because it's deceptive or manipulative, but because it operates from a depth beyond superficial reaction. This creates what might be called invisible dominance, influence that doesn't announce itself, but silently shapes the environment through the magnetic pull of centered awareness. The transformation this creates isn't just internal, but relational. You begin to notice how your own composure affects those around you, how it disarms aggression, inspires confidence, and creates space for more thoughtful interaction. In moments of crisis, while others react from fear or anger, your controlled response becomes a stabilizing force that naturally assumes leadership. If you've noticed how your own mental composure affects the dynamics around you, write in the comments. Composure creates influence. Now, I want to explore one of the most powerful mental tools available to those seeking extraordinary clarity, what I call precision thinking. In a world where most people scatter their mental energy in dozens of directions, achieving fragments of results and calling it productivity, precision thinking represents a fundamentally different approach to creating outcomes. Rather than diffusing focus across multiple objectives, it channels every ounce of mental energy toward one clear target until reality bends to your intention. This approach to thought stands in stark contrast to our culture's obsession with multitasking and constant activity. Precision isn't about speed, but accuracy. It's not about how many tasks you can juggle, but how completely you can execute the essential ones. When you observe someone operating with true precision, there's an almost artistic quality to their efficiency. No wasted motion, no unnecessary steps, just clean execution aligned perfectly with intention. Machiavelli captured this principle perfectly when he wrote, "It is better to act and repent than not to act and regret." At first glance, this might seem like an endorsement of rash action. But the deeper wisdom reveals something more nuanced about decisive movement. Precision isn't about hesitation or endless analysis. It's about deliberate action executed with calculation rather than emotion, with enough decisiveness to create momentum, but enough awareness to adapt when necessary. The revelation that transformed my own relationship with decision-making was understanding that precision and decisiveness aren't opposites. They're complementary forces. The precise thinker gathers information thoroughly but doesn't succumb to analysis paralysis. They define exactly what outcome they seek, identify the minimum effective steps to achieve it, then execute with complete commitment. This balance between thoughtful planning and decisive action creates a rhythm to their movement that feels both methodical and fluid. What separates precision thinking from ordinary approaches is how it transforms your relationship with outcomes. People who think loosely, jumping from one partial effort to another, essentially depend on luck. Occasionally, their scattered efforts align with favorable circumstances to produce results. But those who master precision literally create outcomes through deliberate design. They don't hope for lucky breaks. They engineer specific conditions that make success inevitable. This creative capacity begins with observation. a heightened awareness that sees patterns in apparent chaos, notices overlooked details, and connects events before they fully unfold. The precise thinker doesn't just react to what's happening, they anticipate movements and position themselves accordingly. This isn't mystical foresight, but trained perception. The ability to read subtle signals that others miss because their attention is too fragmented to notice. Behind every seemingly lucky success story is this same pattern of precision. Someone who directed complete attention toward a clearly defined target, observed carefully while others reacted blindly, and moved decisively at exactly the right moment. What appears as good fortune to outside observers is actually the predictable result of focused intention combined with strategic timing. This approach to thinking doesn't just change results, it transforms your entire experience of work and creation. Projects that once felt overwhelming become manageable when approached with precision. Goals that seem distant become achievable when every action aligns perfectly with intention. The mental clarity that comes from this alignment creates a profound sense of confidence that no amount of scattered activity can match. If you've experienced that satisfaction of achieving something through precision rather than brute force or luck, write in the comments, "Precision is power." Now let me reveal one of the most valuable assets in the journey toward mental clarity, what I call emotional immunity. In a world where most people collapse under the weight of their own feelings, allowing every rejection, criticism, or disappointment to dictate their mental state, emotional immunity stands as the silent armor of truly powerful minds. It represents not the absence of feeling, but the remarkable capacity to remain steady and clear while emotions burn beneath the surface. This isn't about becoming cold or detached. It's about developing the strength to feel everything fully without being controlled by those feelings. Imagine standing in a storm, feeling the full force of the wind and rain while remaining perfectly balanced and centered. That's emotional immunity. Not an escape from the storm, but mastery within it. Machiavelli captured this vulnerability perfectly when he wrote, "The one who deceives will always find those who allow themselves to be deceived." Behind this seemingly cynical observation lies a profound truth about human psychology. Emotionally reactive people are easily manipulated precisely because they move from impulse rather than intelligence. When someone is governed by their emotions, their decisions become predictable, their triggers obvious, their vulnerabilities exposed. Building emotional immunity doesn't mean suppressing authentic feeling. It means developing the ability to recognize emotion without surrendering to it. This subtle shift transforms how you process everything from criticism to praise, from setbacks to successes. Each emotional response becomes information rather than direction, data rather than command. This creates a mind that uses emotion as intelligence rather than being used by it. The journey toward this mental clarity inevitably includes mistakes, moments where clarity fails, where old patterns reassert themselves, where emotion temporarily overwhelms intention. But here's another revelation that separates the extraordinary from the ordinary. Mistakes are not failures, but fingerprints of progress. Every error contains a coded message from reality, revealing precisely where your mental model needs refinement. The weak run from their mistakes because they confuse pain with punishment. They hide from errors, deny responsibility, or blame circumstances, anything to avoid the discomfort of confronting their own limitations. But those committed to mental sharpness take a radically different approach. They dissect their mistakes with scientific curiosity, extracting every possible lesson before moving forward. Each error becomes not a source of shame, but a catalyst for growth. This combination of emotional immunity, precision thinking, and willingness to learn transforms how you move through life. Those who master mental sharpness develop an almost uncanny ability to read between words, seeing what's not said as clearly as what is. They detect intentions beneath statements, anticipate moves before they're made, and act with precision when others hesitate or react blindly. What's particularly fascinating about this level of mental clarity is that it no longer needs external validation. Those who achieve it don't feel compelled to prove their intelligence or capabilities to others because their control speaks for itself. They move with a quiet certainty that comes from knowing exactly what they want and precisely how to achieve it. Their sharpened mind becomes not just a tool for achievement, but a lens that reveals reality with extraordinary clarity. If you felt that moment when mental clarity cut through confusion like a blade through fog, share in the comments. A sharp mind cuts through everything. As we come to the close of this conversation about mental sharpness, I want you to remember something profound. This journey toward mental clarity isn't just about productivity or success. It's about reclaiming sovereignty in a world designed to fragment your attention and control your thoughts. Every moment of focus, every instance of mental discipline, every act of subtractive thinking is a quiet declaration of independence. The path we've explored together isn't easy. It demands courage to silence noise when everyone around you chases distraction. It requires discipline to pause when others react. It takes wisdom to remove rather than add when the entire culture pushes you toward more. But that's precisely why this journey transforms not just your mind, but your entire experience of reality. If you found value in these insights, if something here resonated with your own experience or illuminated a path forward, I'd love to continue this conversation with you. Subscribe to join a community of others on this same journey toward mental sovereignty. We're exploring these principles of clarity, focus, and precision in ways that can genuinely transform how you navigate our increasingly chaotic world. If this message found you at exactly the right moment, drop "My mind is my weapon" in the comments. I read them personally and would love to know what specifically resonated with you. If you found value in these ideas, a simple like helps others discover this conversation who might be searching for the same clarity you're seeking. It's a small gesture that creates ripples of impact. There's a video right here that delves even deeper into how to apply these principles of mental clarity in high-pressure situations. Click and continue with me there as we explore how to maintain this razor-sharp focus when the stakes are highest and distractions are strongest. The journey toward mental mastery is just beginning,